Again, it's going to get back to get back to. Um, it's a reasonable age, and it's quite a mature tree. And it is a significant part, like others, I walked around the village yesterday, and it is a significant part of the village landscape. Um, well, I'm really unhappy about removing that. Highway safety, we drove out to the election. We drove into the yard and came out, and it's a sunny day. The visibility wasn't very strong at all. And there's an issue, it's 30-mile-an-hour road, but it's actually quite a busy road at times, particularly at peak periods, and traffic will come in and out at peak periods. So I think there's an issue there. However, Rushbury Parish Council supports it. And that's quite unusual to put it up, that very often parish councils objecting or wanting changes. This is supported, that weighs on one side in its favour. There's also no 5-year mastercard, as we heard of the introduction from Jenny. That again, what's the tilted balance a little bit of. So I think this is a difficult one. I don't quite know what my view is. I'm inclined to go against it, but it's not a very strong against. Would somebody like to propose a motion? Councillor Walmsley.
Propose the vote against that.
So we follow the officer's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Waite. Do we have any other proposals? Yeah, so we propose it, Councillor Walmsley. We're just discussing issue. We're just discussing conditions. So you take the conditions that are in the report. No. Yeah, and
You're agreeing with the recommendation to refuse.
I'm agreeing with the recommendation to refuse.
that's it, yeah. Sorry, that's what I thought they said, but my apologies for the confusion. However, with the reasons as the officers suggested, but another condition which I'll ask Charlotte to,
Yeah, and just having listened to the discussion is whether you want to go with reason for refusal as per the report, which I do, or whether you want to add any other things, whether there's anything you want to add on from the discussions that you've had. I think it's just the clarity that might be useful. I know there's, I've got a bit about, the archaeology stuff, which is probably covered in the historic, isn't it?
Yeah, I did check with Becky, they didn't have a record of that.
So that's been checked. Yeah, if you're happy with that, I think that's has to be included in this recommendation. It's
So I think the officers have done a really good job of capturing the concerns related to the clarification. So I'm proposing agreeing with their recommendation refusal based on the reasons for the review.
okay, then, Jim, can we go for a vote?
Okay, so if you can indicate whether you're voting for or against that motion to refuse the application, please. Caroline Bucknell? For. Elizabeth Barker? Against. Rachel Conley? For. Nick Hickman?
For.
So you're voting for the refusal?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. Can I just advise that we are now live streaming?
That was brilliant.
Okay, George Collingham?
For.
For the refusal. Okay, Colin Taylor?
for
Bethany White? For. Sam Worsley?
For.
And Andy Wellington? For. Okay, so that's unanimous, that's refused.
Right, okay, now, I'm just going to get some minds away. Don't seem to have any go. For those listening on live stream, can I apologise that we've been off hour? And we've been off air, sorry. We had some problems with technology, which you might have gathered. That's now fixed. So we go on to the next item, which is the already had much, well, not going to be, my computer was just shut down. So, this given.
During my report, and I just draw your attention to an error on the front page of the report where there's the applicant is Shropshire Council. Thank you for drawing that to my attention with this. That's kind of, yeah, it's not Shropshire Council, though, the applicant's a Mr. Nedick and something like that, which you can send report for sure. For sure, how that's. I'm losing. Not working, sorry. The variation of condition 2, which is planned, this is the site detailed plan proposed for the quarry. Next slide, please. This is the hard works plan. And this is the landscaping plan that's been submitted. And if you could do the next slide as well, please. This is the approved plan from the 2009 permission, which is extant, which means it exists, planning permission is important. But the matter of the variation application stays in the area condition 2 and to seek removal of condition 15. Next slide, please. An aerial view site in 2017, as you all know from the report, unlawful works took place to change the site levels, which had an unmitigated effect on ecology on site. So this was the view in 2017. If you could please go to the next slide. This is the aerial view this year. So substantial work has taken place there. Next slide, please. This is the view of the site from the highway in 2011. Next slide. And this is the view today, so you can see the substantial amount of earth habitat has been removed, need to be in time. And this was subject to the enforcement of the environment in 2023. And the result of that, advised the applicants to submit the applications now.
Okay. Then, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Jenny. Any questions? No, then we move on to the public speakers. Councillor Tyler, if I may just leave you for the moment, Councillor Morris has to leave very shortly. And so if I could bring up
Councillor Morris or Councillor
Sorry?
Councillor Thomas.
Thomas. It's that sort of day.
Same first name.
No, I'm sorry, Dan. It's been like that all day long.
My mic working? Members of the committee, I think there's been a bit of confusion in the planning and highways departments. Paragraph 1.10 of the committee reports there states that the second condition subject to amendment is the proposed removal of condition 15, which stated before development commences, the applicant or developer shall enter into an agreement to contribute to its off-site traffic calming measures of a sum up to £10,000 and to provide a public toilet block at developer's expense to a specification and a location to be agreed in writing beforehand with the local planning authority. So please note specifically the words at the developer's expense. It's right there in the committee report and there shouldn't be confusion. The developer builds a toilet block at their own expense and provides a £10,000 contribution to off-site traffic calming. Why the highways conclude that this contribution can be removed is beyond me, I'm afraid. We really need it in Much Wenlock. Traffic from this development will drive past Willingbrook School, the largest employer in the town, with nearly 1,000 pupils. And we must be looking at ways to minimise the impact along Barlow Road. The Highways next claims that they cannot implement much for £10,000 isn't really the point. This is a contribution and doesn't have to be a full scheme payment. In addition to this, I'm assured by the Town Council Transport Working Group that for under £10,000, several traffic calming measures can be implemented, primarily focusing on horizontal and vertical deflection and visual deterrence. These include road markings, rumble strips, vehicle-activated signs, speed cushions, and gateway treatments. I have a list that I can circulate if required. Moving on to the toilet block, there is an inadequate justification for removal. The officer's reasoning that the site will be privately owned and unoperated and that it's not accessible to the public ignores the broader context. Holiday accommodation sites generate a significant public impact through increased visitor traffic to Much Wenlock, the strain on the existing public facilities in the town, and the site has a prominent gateway location into Much Wenlock. The original 2009 permission included the toilet block requirements for good reason, to mitigate the impact of 53 holiday chalets on local infrastructure. Those reasons have not disappeared. If anything, pressure on Much Wenlock's facilities has increased over the last 15 plus years. And removing this requirement sets a dangerous precedent that developers can simply apply to remove inconvenient obligations years later without proper justification. This developer should honour the original planning bargain. The applicant provides no evidence that the need for public toilet provision has diminished. The officer's assertion lacks a supporting analysis of the current public facility capacity of Much Wenlock. So let me tell you straight, as a born and bred Much Wenlockian, the famous Gashall Recreation Ground, where the Wenlock Olympics are held, the birthplace of the modern Olympics, has had a toilet block for decades. This fell into disrepair and had to be closed in 2008. But because of the planning condition on the Shadwell Quarry site granted in 2009, The people of Much Wenlock were always promised to have a new toilet block on the Gaskell grounds. The pipework for this has been in place next to the play park, and it was never intended to be part of the Shadwell development. Had the owner or the agent actually bothered to engage with the community, they would know. Instead, they looked to sidestep out of their obligation to people like Much Wenlock and the people of Shropshire. Provision of the toilet block was made to make up for the adverse effect of having these holiday chalets situated where they are. Given the site's prominent position of Much Wenlock entrance, the developer has a greater responsibility to contribute positively to the town's infrastructure and visitor experience. I am blessed with 2 young children who use the park in Much Wenlock. The public toilets on Queen Street are too far away for them to go if they need to. The ground is widely used by our retired community. They too find the absence of a public toilet a hindrance. Therefore, I'm asking you to think again the health and the well-being are rejected. Thank you.
Any questions for Councillor Thomas?
Can you just tell me where the actual park is in relation?
Yeah, of course, it's on, so there's the Shadwell Quarry, Windmill, School, Field, and then the play park on the Station Road side.
So the back of Eagle Street got the cricket pitch.
Yes, it's just there basically. It's just down there. There's a cricket pitch, football pitch, and park. So it's all in one. And it was when I was a child, we was used to have a toilet block there as well used. And now that I'm a father of young children, it's greatly missed. But it's not just missed by the children; it's missed by the entire community. And I felt it's only missed.
Any more questions? Then thank you very much. And our next speaker is Councillor Chris Tyler.
Right. That's not one. That's yeah, very good. Thanks. Chair, councillors, my name is Christopher Tyler. I am a member of Much Wenlock Town Council. I act as Deputy Chair of the Planning and Environment Committee and Chair of the Transport Working Group. I'm here today to object in the strongest possible terms to the unreasonable position taken by SC's Planning and Highways Department for the removal of Condition 15 within the application. The Highways Manager's response in the committee report states that while Section 106 contributions were encouraged, the contribution was for the sum of £10,000 towards off-site measures and the provision of a public toilet block. The response added that SC would be unable to deliver a substantial scheme within the £10,000 when taking into consideration that the public toilet block would also need to be delivered with the £10,000 contribution. Can I now invite councillors to turn to section 6.6.1 on other matters? It states here quite clearly that condition 15 of the original planning permission also included a provision of a public toilet block on site to be agreed through legal agreement and funded by the developer, not part of the figure of up to £10,000 specified. Therefore, councillors, does this not make it clear that the developer was expected to fund a toilet block? Also, that the 10,000 contribution was towards the off-site traffic calming works. To me and my fellow councillors, it certainly does. In relation to that £10,000 contribution, the developer provides no reason in the permitted documents other than to bluntly state that the removal of the condition is, I quote, considered necessary to meet updated site circumstances. Councillors, let me be clear, there is nothing on site that justifies the removal of a contribution of £10,000 towards off-site traffic calming. It doesn't make any sense at all. I believe that what we have here is a simple case of a developer trying to get out of their commitment to the people of Much Wenlock. The Planning and Highways Department state, quite incorrectly, that they cannot build any traffic calming for £10,000. They also wrongly try to claim that the toilet block should also come out of that sum. I find it difficult to understand that the Highways Authority position on this. Of course we can build traffic calming schemes for £10,000. with the amount of traffic likely to be heading towards Much Wenlock from a building programme of over 3,000 new dwellings from development sites at Ironbridge Power Station, Tasley Gateway and Tasley Garden Village. We need to get all the traffic calming measures we can get. Needless to say, these developments will provide financial settlements giving help to the town. Why, therefore, should the Highways Authority decide that the development of this application can be excluded? Their visitors and long-term staying occupants will certainly contribute to the traffic in the town. And finally, councillors, can we remember that we are discussing a contribution? Nobody is saying that we must have a scheme for exactly £10,000. All we are saying is that the contribution can, if necessary, contribute towards a more expensive scheme. Consequently, councillors, may I request that you take the option that is fair and appropriate to the people of Much Wenlock and refuse the removal of condition 15. I just want to add something else, also, which we discussed this morning at the site visit. May I also refer you to the soft landscaping plan drawing BEA 22-11706, which you saw earlier. There is no allowance for screening to the entrance of or along the driveway. This approach is a gateway to Much Wenlock, and the caravan chalets must be screened to preserve the current visual aspect to our market town. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah. To use though, but I'm a little bit confused. I apologise about the toilets. Where were the original toilets to be built that the developer said that they would provide? Because Councillor Thomas is under the impression that they would have been off-site. And I just want some clarification on that, please.
It was never formally specified, but in the documents, it was on the meeting in 2009. It was going to be where the old one was.
Right. But we haven't got anything.
Yeah, just to clarify, when you read the word of the condition, it says for it to be a location to be agreed with the RPA beforehand. So I need to be back to part of that. But no, that was set out when it was originally considered.
So it didn't specify it was going to be on the site, but it equally didn't specify it was to be agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then, thank you very much, councillor.
Thank you.
Now, we don't have a speaker for the agent, so we go over to discussion. Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Chair. I have got some other things to say, but I just want to be quite clear on this condition 15 because we seem to be getting, I'm still a bit confused. From what I understand, am I inviting Peggy that the conditions there up to £10,000 because the suggestion in the report is that we could get away with just paying £1. So I'd just like clarification on that. And I do understand now that the toilets weren't needed to be built on the site because, as it says in the report, it's private land. There's no point in putting public toilets on private land, especially if people have got to actually go over that because that land could be closed up at any time on the unavailable to members of the public. So unless the toilets on the condition allowing somebody to be used for those toilets was to be built off-site, there'd be no point in that condition 15. But I don't want to agree to removing condition 15 if there was a chance that some money could be contributed towards a toilet block or road improvements. I'm really looking at much for £10,000 these days. I'd just like clarification, please.
You're correct that it is up to £10,000. So in theory, it could be any figure between 1 and
Can I just add something to the chair? But the issue about looking at this condition is if you leave it on there and considering, we have to consider, well, are they going to engage with us to provide me? Well, if they would have known, we could have got something, we have had that through this application process. But then equally, this is a prior to development commences condition on the original 2009 application. That consent had to have commenced by 2012 to be lawfully done. that has been done and agreed through a certificate. You then, if you're going to take action against it through the enforcement process to say you're in breach of the condition, you have a time limit for taking such action. That is 10 years. That has now lapsed. So there are real complications with trying to seek to keep this condition on the consent, because we have nothing that it bars against now, because it has been in breach for an excess of 10 years' time from when the development first started. I just think that's important for all the committee to be aware of when they consider their deliberations on it.
Any, Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just have some clarification? On the site visit, we were made aware that there's been some wholesale destruction of the ecology of the site since it was granted permissions. Was that so long ago that we can't do anything about that now? Is that part of, sorry, is that what you're saying? That we cannot address any reparations that need to be made?
No, so just to be clear, the unauthorised works altering the land levels only happened in the last couple of years. So although the Commission did enough work to implement it back somewhere in 2012, they came back onto site, they not bought the site after they got permission granted, they came back onto site about 2023 and did some unauthorised works and not in accordance with that 2009 planning permission. And that is part of the works that this application is now seeking to regularise. That answers your question, okay? Thank you.
So,
if I ask a couple of questions, so what to do with condition 2, which is just the change of where they are requesting to put some return chalets, I believe. So the previous application was to build them further on down the site that we saw this morning. Since then, they illegally did what they did, and it, you know, I don't know, is it too strong a word? Unlawfully, actually, unlawfully did what they did, and then are now asking us to change the conditions so that they can build on that, some of that land that they unlawfully altered. Okay, thank you.
This is not a very happy application, is it? Further report, Councillor Higginbotham.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to state how disappointed I am about the works carried out in 2022, because they destroyed the habitats of protected species, including great crested newts. I was told this morning there were peregrine falcons on site as well, and to destroy deliberately a habitat that was supported by those sort of species should never have been done. Now, if this application was approved, the conditions would ensure partial restoration of the habitat. You're never going to get it back to what it was before. The peregrine falcons probably wouldn't come back. Whether it's great crested newts or not is down to another survey anyway. But at least we would get some partial restoration, so I'm taking that into consideration. The amendments of the proposed do still provide a tourist site of 53 chalets, which is the original one that was suggested. Although, as you've said, citing some of them much nearer to the entrance. And this is going to alter the visual impact from across the valley. There wasn't a lot of residential properties across the valley. There was one large farm that I noticed this morning. But how much you would see those chalets because they would be on the higher illegally formed ground, I don't know. But perhaps a condition could be imposed on that if we did decide to approve this. You would need to minimise visibility from the A4169, the boat going past. It's difficult to tell from the before and after photographs there what the visibility would be, but I would suggest that it would certainly need adequate screening, whatever that may be, to make sure the chalets could not be seen by traffic from there. You would still see them from the other side of the valley. I think I now understand the reasons for removing condition 15. If there is no chance at all that we as a committee can enforce any of that condition 15, I see no point in keeping on there, so I'm not too concerned with condition 15, although I'm very disappointed that the town council, much Wenlock, would not get support for the toilet block. It's just whether we're willing to accept the fact that they have illegally bought some land and now want to put caravans on it. It's in a way, it's sort of rewarding them for taking the illegal work that they did. And I'm not happy with that, but if it's the lesser of two evils and we need to support this to get something done on this site, I would support it.
Councillor Walmsley.
I broadly agree with much of what Councillor Hicknett just said. I remain concerned about the removal of condition 15. Feels like we're in a situation where, as has been said by several members, the developer stands to benefit from unusual work they've completed by placing caravans in a location that they really feel is going to be more appealing to their customers. They are also looking to remove a community benefit that they're going to deliver as part of the scheme, and therefore come out up on that front as well. I would be much more comfortable with this application if the developer had said, well, first of all, recognised and apologised for the unlawful work they carried out, but then recognised the conditions being stated by the officers in their report that we can't get the habitat that they've destroyed back, but they have put forward a plan who would allow some mitigation of that loss. And we're willing to put in a condition which would be legally enforceable in this variation to deliver toilet block that they had originally promised, and which would clearly be a great benefit to Much Wenlock. Given the fact that they appear to be wanting to get everything they're asking for, benefit from their unlawful development, remove their obligation to deliver a toilet block, at present I'm minded to vote against this application and refuse it.
Councillor Williams.
If we were looking at this as a housing estate, we would expect the builders to give something back to the area. We're not, they're not going to give anything back to Much Wenlock because it's caravans. And Much Wenlock's going to lose out by 53 caravans with potential for a lot more going on that site because of the way they cleared it unlawfully. Plus, I am concerned because they've come back 2 years ago and done all that damage. How can we ensure that they're not going to do even more damage or ignore anything that we put on them because they don't seem to care about the regulations that they've been given?
Yeah, I think we need to be really, really clear on this one, because we're straying into slightly dangerous territory of what we want something from them. But firstly, I think we want really clear that condition is not lawful and not enforceable, therefore pointless. Secondly, when we talk about developers making a contribution, those contributions are about making the development acceptable. They are not about what we can gain or get from developers. So, for instance, this is the contribution to system public toilets. What you have to ask yourself is, without that contribution, is the development acceptable? It's also not lawful. I mean, you know, this is not a good look. There's some bad admin on here on the drafting of these conditions. I've got so many holes in them, they just don't work. We can't put conditions on that state financial amounts of money. That's what section 106 and unilateral originating's for. So we've not put ourselves in glory, but I don't think anyone's here who starts to announce that we're in glory. So I think we have to be really clear about those things. And the other thing is, this time we go through the conditions and so they will be great. I think this time we thought really carefully about what we're applying conditions for, and that they are precise and that they are enforceable. And we have to be really careful that, and I understand, having said in committee that you think that the developers should recognise and apologise. I think that is a political statement. The planning officers can't do that. You cannot have a penalty in dealing with an application that's retrospective. So I hope that's pretty fair with that.
Yeah, is it, this, sorry, but Councillor Collins.
Thank you. Just, I think for my benefit and also maybe for the benefit of people watching, if we accept or regrettably accept this sort of thing, there might not be a lot we can do about that. But condition 2 is obviously the change of where some of the chalets will be. If we say we don't accept that condition and it goes back to the original application where they would have to be built further down where the original permission was granted, is that correct? As per that. And we asked them to reinstate what was originally there at the top. You understand what I'm saying? That was unlawfully removed. I think I know the answer to this, but I think for the benefit of people who might be reading these minutes and watching this, particularly people who are trying to try and understand what the restrictions really, in a way that would, not restrictions, but how difficult a decision this is, if that makes sense. And I want people to understand that we're really thinking long and hard about this, and in a way we kind of feel like our hands are tied to some extent. And so is there any way in which we could ask them, we could say, you have to build where you said you were going to build in the first place and reinstate what you took away?
Well, I'll answer that. So if we refuse this application, then obviously the 2009 application still stands and then that will be built. At the moment, they wouldn't be in accordance with the drawings because as you can see on there, it's sort of showing the contour lines, which show that at the entrance point into the site, the ground was mended and higher and offered screening. We could therefore seek to use enforcement powers to serve a notice to get the land levels changed back to do that. What you wouldn't necessarily be able to get off the back of that is the ecological enhancements that are being offered as part of this application. That might not be part of these to secure. So that's part of what the balance is going to be about. That's clear.
This is a really difficult one, and I didn't know the site about how to visit with this time around. And it's one that I don't want to approve the positive recommendation, but the logic in planning and legal sense means that I think I have to vote for the officer recommendation, and it will leave a bad taste in my mouth. You know, it's not the sort of thing I like doing, and it's not good planning. And it means that somebody has got away with stuff. But some of that is some of our past history and planning, and things, you know, and some of that, you know, it's just the way things work before. It doesn't work like this anymore in the council, and hopefully we won't get to repeat. I'm sure we won't get to repeat again. However, we feel it is past and legacy. Yeah, this seems to me to be the best way to honour it, given the fact we boxed in. You know, we have almost nowhere else to go. If I think that you went against the recommendation, I don't think it actually be acting legally. I think it would be open to the judicial review quite easily on that, or we just find the planning inspector. And I just don't feel confident with reading that way. So regrettably, I am going to vote for this through my rigidity. And I then propose that we go with the officer's recommendation and approve what they suggested. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickley.
Chair, I will say this, and if I could just say quickly that I understand exactly what you're saying. I've listened to the debate, but where our town council will be the losers on this. And that's regrettable, but I do think that the officers were very carefully submitted conditions to this, if we which will show that the applicant will not be able to carry out the sort of works that he carried out before, because the conditions show that everything has to be approved before any demolition of any of the works take place. And at least we will get partial reinstatement of the ecological needs on this site. And for that reason only, and to see it move forward, I'm willing to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ask a question before we vote.
Yeah.
So I understand the situation and the risk we were taking voting against this. If there is going to be support for the officer's recommendations to approve this, are we able to add additional conditions? So there's a lot about screening the entrance.
Yeah, I mean, part of one of the drawings to be approved in landscaping plan, so they've shown us their detail in their landscaping. Could you just go back to the approved plan on there? So yeah, the proposed landscaping plan that we have, which does show in that sort of area.
You've got to drop it down to see the entrance.
That's the way the drawings are, that's the way the drawings.
Well, it doesn't show the entrance to the site, which is where the screening and the landscaping. If you look at 106, it should show.
Can we go back to the plan procedure?
I think yes, this is in that.
That does show the entrance, but obviously what we had, when we visited the site today, and we drove into the entrance, there was a security background on the right hand side. They're proposing to move that security down the left hand side, to be offering that sort of surveillance to the entrance points and the office space, and then have the residential caravans for the following. If you're not happy with the landscaping drawing that is submitted with it, then we could look to condition that with limited scope, given that the layout is what's set in front of us to deal with in terms of where we could actually implement any additional screening material. That option is open.
Sure. Can I just say quickly, condition 3 says within 3 months of the date, Country's Planning Commission details of existing and proposed finished ground levels must be submitted to around the local planning commission. So I know that's not talking about screening, but it's talking about finished ground levels. If they felt that the ground level needed to be raised near the entrance, we would have to get that approved.
Thank you, Councillor. I think we've given a lot of steerage to the officers about the fact that we want screening and we want them to look a bit closer when it comes in. I think we go to a vote.
It's just been drawn to my attention that condition 6 of what we're proposing actually talks about the landscaping details. So that is within there and within our gift when that discharge country to look back to their screening and taking on board what the committee wants for raising of course. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Emma. So, unless there's another proposal.
Sorry, I hope I'm allowed to ask another question.
Yes.
So condition 6 allows for soft landscaping, but does that, can we at this point specify something that says part of the soft landscaping will include visual screening at the entrance? So I take the point about the security cabin, but I think there's quite a big difference between a security cabin and a row of trees that actually hide the site from view.
We can make a minor adjustment in the bullet points to make that very clear. if that was put forward as part of the recommendation.
No, I just then suggest that we delegate to officers that they work on the details of the conditions and implement the ones that we've made. Officers are happy with that. I see a row of nodding heads. So I don't think we can word it here. It's not that practical. And so we'll delegate that to officers. So unless there's another proposal, I am calling for a vote. Okay.
I seconded.
Yes, with the actually, yeah.
So can you indicate whether you're voting for or against, the officer recommendation? Caroline Bednall,
Reluctantly for.
Elizabeth Barker. So the recommendation is to approve, subject to those conditions. Yes, no, so it's only. Or abstain.
Has anyone got coin? I'm gonna just go for.
Four, okay. Rachel Family,
As councillor Bagnall reluctantly for.
Nick Hickmick,
Or
George Holyhead,
Going to abstain.
Colin Taylor,
Through Richard Phillips for.
Beverly White. Against. Sam Walmsley
Abstain.
and Andrew Waddington.
Or,
That's 6 for that.
okay, that's carried, and, yeah, that's a sticky one, I'm slightly over the moon. We move on to Oak Valley Reserve.
Nothing. Use this next. Members. So the officer report sets out the detail of the recommendation for the application. So I'm happy to answer questions you have in relation to that bit later. You'll note that there is an update to the main report setting out a revised recommendation and the officer to receive additional information from the applicant and further response from our apologists since the drafting of the main report. We will take you through a number of slides setting out the detail of this given. Here we have the location of planning with the application site area denoted by the red line. This has been extended to incorporate the areas required for biodiversity in this game. Next slide, please. Next we have block plan showing the extent of the new access track, the extended car park and the right access to facilitate movement by larger vehicles. Yeah, we've also got the visibility displays shown on there. The officer report acknowledges that the access works are a better match to the existing access and the proposed works have supported the local highway authority. Next slide, please. Next, we have a plan denoting the yes, that part of the access. Slide, please. So we have here the plan denoting the extent of the ancient woodland designation and the associated habitat maps. Slide, please. Here we have the biodiversity net gain compensation strategy. We can revisit any of these should there be any specific questions about them. I appreciate our question through those. Next slide, please. Finally, have some pictures. Here are 2 images of the woodland plantation to be felled and restored. Slide, please. These are the images of the lower northeast part of the site. Next slide, please. And finally, these are the images looking either way from the site entrance and the existing culvert, which should be extended to accommodate the widened works at the access. Overall, officers recognise the scheme accords with local national policy, with any harmful impact being minor and short term and offset by the wider longer term benefits of restoring the ancient woodland. Recommendations therefore under approval for delegation to officers to secure a Section 6 agreement or a financial contribution towards PNG monitoring, and the conditions set out in the officer report along with the suggested amendments set out in the updated report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. Are there any comments on this or questions? In that case, I propose from Chair that we accept the offered recommendation, subject to the conditions and delegating authority to the officers to finalise biodiversity net gain. And
I'll second that, Chairman.
seconded by Councillor Taylor. So we go straight to a vote on this one.
Sorry, but you're just doing ownership.
I think on principle we're doing the wrong job.
Ricky, get indicates whether you're voting for or against, please. Carolyn Bagnall. For. Elizabeth Barker. For. Rachel Fanning. For. Nick Hicknett.
For.
George Hollier.
For.
Holly Taylor.
For.
Beverly White. For. Sam Walmsley.
For.
And Nancy Wade.
For.
Okay, so that's it.
Yes, change.
Right, so we're going to go for this. Very, my hands are frozen. Okay, so the next one is also, I think, straightforward, which is the cottages at Wistonstone. Do we have any?
Extensions to residential property applications before we, because the applicant is a building control surveyor and the director roles, the planning services manager. Yeah, so we're taking the plans, the location plan. Slide please. See the proposed extensions, site extension, and the small orchard scope extension. Slide please. Yeah, so this is the, here we go, existing elevation of the property, slide. There it is with the extension on this.
Thank you, Louise.
Congratulations, one of April was.
Yeah, this would not have come to us if it wasn't just a clear council, absolute council law. So any application from an officer or a councillor must come to committee for the sake of transparency. So I'm going to propose that we approve this without discussion.
I'd just second that, Chair, thank you.
And I knew on this one, we'll just take a show of hands. Yep. And finally, we're getting there. It's a Sheffield Appeals and it's an appeal decisions. I would draw members' attention to the bounds of the decision here. And I don't discuss it here, but it's a solar farm. And one of the most complex ones that we've done, because it went to appeal, the appeal that was quashed in the High Court. It went back to appeal. The objectors actually didn't deal with the developer. So we drew their objection and then it was approved. And it shows some of the complexity that we can get into, frankly, with some of these. But if we have to, we will. Finally, is the date of the next meeting, which hopefully will run a bit more smoothly than this one, which is on Thursday, the 2nd of July, 2025.
Can I give my apologies now, Chairman? I should be in Paris. Thank you.
I just have to come over.
Just come.
20 seconds.
Thank you, second.
Be a friend? No. We just went to the dog there.
We're on a minute. Having this much particular carrying the dog as they do.
So I'm not making
Yeah, give another bit.
We'll have to move. First thing to class down.
Can you not turn this off now together?
Yeah, didn't talk to the other end.
Looks like you've been further than
Well, I'll tell you what, turn your mics off, folks, and it won't be picked up on the line.
Well, I mean, we will do it next.
Sorry that was such a mess at the beginning.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Is it Archer?
No.
Can we just wait for you to turn up?
I take your advice. It will still fuck up on a certain extent, even without the microphone.
We just unplug